Hello, welcome to my video for the review of Gene by Akko. So Akko is a somewhat newer kind of hip hop, rock, pop Japanese artist on the kind of indie circuit that she's in. She officially started her career in 2020 and has released 3 EPs and about a dozen singles, and now we have her first studio album. Now, although I just said that she is kind of a rock, hip hop, pop artist, this album is it's very funky. If I had to really give it a genre, I'd say there are two. And I don't know if these are like official genres, but they're just kind of what I'm feeling. I would almost call it bedroom disco, and then I would also maybe call it like city pop minimalism. And I'll get into that as I go song by song. So let's get into it. So the first song is called Good Morning, and it has this very like cute and bouncy production, which kind of seems like the hallmark style of hers from what I can tell. Her voice sounds very small and kind of withdrawn in a way, which actually fits the production super well. And it's in a way that the production is very lively and energetic, and it makes me want to try to like listen in more on what she's saying. So I think that is a really cool element of her whole style too. Now, genre-wise, I would for sure say that this is a perfect example of that kind of city pop minimalism that I was talking about. It has all of the hallmark traits of the city pop genre. However, it's never too like boisterous or kind of bombastic in its production. It's not trying to show off, I should say, which again, I think is a very interesting way to kind of play it, right? Now, the next song is called Planet. It's this fantastic dance track, and it also has a very subdued sound like the previous track as well. And it's got this insanely catchy hook. The song is kind of about having trouble breaking up with someone in a kind of like unrequited love sort of way, having to let someone go even though you yourself don't really want to. So the lyrics kind of allude to there being this like gravitational pull, and because a planet has that pull, it's kind of this like one-sided pull, right? So that kind of plays into the theme of only one person in the relationship wanting to be in the relationship. So I thought that was a really cool kind of metaphor. So the next song is called Atashi no Zenbu o Wasenai. One thing I guess I should probably mention now is that on Spotify, and I'm assuming other streaming platforms too, there are two versions of the album. There is the version that has the Japanese titles, and then there is the version that has the titles in English, which are not always like one-for-one translations, or even 1-2 or 1-3 or 1-4. They can be somewhat varied. The English title for this is All to Myself, which is still pretty spot on, but I did just want to point that out because there is one song later on that is, I feel like, significantly different than what the Japanese title is. So we'll get to that when we get to it. So for this song, I find it to be a really cool blend of kind of, I guess, bedroom pop and also just modern mainstream J-pop. The percussion sounds fantastic and is very playful, much like the other tracks on this album. And also, Akko's delivery is just really great on this album, and it really fits like the mood and the vibe of the song perfectly. In particular, I think the way the song's bridge features this like seamless transition from jazz to almost like metal sounding guitar is very reminiscent to me of this Japanese band called Lucky Tapes, which were popular about 7-8 years ago, and they haven't really been too active, I won't say post like 2020. It just really reminds me of them, and I really wonder if maybe the guitars from that band had any hand in the production of this song. I know Akko works with like a collective of artists, so it's possible that they're like a member or a friend and they helped out, but it really sounded like spot on like that. So maybe. The next song is called Miss You. There's really not much I have else to say about it. I don't really have any issues with it. I don't particularly think any part of it is like fantastic. I just think it sounds good. It suits the album. You could take it off and I wouldn't mind, or you could leave it on and I wouldn't mind. So it's just sort of there. Now the next song is called Beige and Pink. Now this is another great dance track with this like really funky kind of 80s sounding production. And it's got this like frantic electric guitar kind of mixed in the background, and it just adds this really nice disco flair, which suits her whole style just absolutely perfectly. Now, the next song after that is called Tenshi, or Angel. And again, it's another fantastic bedroom disco song. It's got this really cool, like reinterpretation of traditional Japanese music by way of kind of like synthesizer usage. She also sounds fantastic here, kind of timing wise. Like she's really synced up well to the rhythm of the song. And the bridge is very like 2018 Gorillaz like. Like it sounds like something off of the Now Now, which I really liked. And since that is kind of this like synthesizer heavy neo disco kind of sounding album, I think kind of plucking sort of some aspects of that is a very apt choice in this situation. So the next song is called Samurai, and it's awesome. So it kind of has this like Flying Lotus Thundercat-esque production to it. Too surprising that she employed this sort of sound, considering that she has this playlist on her Spotify account that is 58 hours long and features just all non-Japanese artists. And there is a lot of Flying Lotus on there. There is some Thundercat. There's like a lot of Claro, which is not surprising. There's a lot of the band Jungle, which is not surprising. There's a lot of Bjork, which is not surprising. So she's definitely wearing her inspirations on her sleeve, but she's able to kind of like mix them all together in a really interesting way where, although they sound like these other artists, I wouldn't ever even say that she's taking their sound for herself. She is just able to use it in so many new and interesting combinations that it really does sound like something new and unique to her as an artist. So major props for that. So with all that said, the song is almost approaching this kind of like breakcore kind of vibe to it, which again is very in line with the sound of this album and fits it perfectly. There are these like twinkling like synth lines and orchestral string arrangements that just sound really nice in combination with just everything happening in this song. I was having some trouble finding who produced every track, but whoever it was, I mean, fantastic job. I love everything about this song and pretty much every previous one too. So the next song is called Jocho, which is a word with a lot of meanings in Japanese. I think the most appropriate one in this case would be that the song would be called Emotion, except the English title is just called You Want, and it's you with just the letter U. So, I mean, I'm sure there's kind of like a correlation you could probably make between the English and the Japanese title for it. I don't really see it, but like you could. So at this point in the track listing, we kind of slowed down once this song hits. So honestly, I do really like where this song fits in the whole listing. Like, sure, I do love dance hit after dance hit after dance hit, but sometimes you just need like that quick reprieve to just kind of like get your energy back. And that's for sure how this song is acting at this point in the album. Now, production wise, what stood out to me was the sound of like real wind instruments, which are also against this like very heavy electric guitar. So that kind of contrast again is just really fun to listen to, and it's just something that you don't really hear too often, at least in American music. And on top of that, the bridge in this song is actually entirely in English. And although it's not well translated, it does sound pretty good to me, primarily because of the lackadaisical delivery that Akko uses. Like, I'm not really off put by the fact that it's really broken English. I still think it sounds really good despite that. So our next song is called Racy, and with this one we are firmly back in the club. We are so back. It's crazy groovy and it has this really great sounding hook, and the first verse in particular is just really fun. And so the lyrics go, "You say only sweet and meaningless things. That makes me want to throw up. Do something useless like growing a beard and shaving it off again." That, oh, sure, okay. But yeah, and on top of that too, there is this instrumental breakdown used as the bridge. And it is so much fun. It is this almost DDR-like in real-time remix of the song, and it sounds awesome. I love it so much, and I keep going back to this song because of that. Please check it out. Racy is awesome. So the next song is called Sumaran, or Bored in the English titling. I love everything about the instrumental. It's almost like a trap beat with like added classical piano and acoustic guitar. So again, more of that contrast that is just really bringing out the highlights of the two kind of mashed up genres. So love that. And then later on, this electric guitar is added as well, and that also just completes it just in every way. Next song is called Lazy. It's more rock oriented than the other songs on the album, though it's still pretty groovy too. And for that reason, it reminds me a lot of the Japanese band Polka Dot Stingray, which I feel like I've kind of spearheaded that sound for the past like 7 or so years. So again, that sound being employed here, I think it just suits the song super well, and I'd like to see more of it, and I'd like to see more Polka Dot Stingray too. So it's a win-win in my book, I feel like. So the next song is called Aiwa Itsumo, and that translates to Love is Always, which is a one-to-one translation there. So super cool for that. So as you can imagine, it is a very sweet song about love. It's still very groovy. The pre-chorus is pretty fun. I will read it now. It goes, until you stop me, I think I'm too rosy, but makes me wonder, utsukushi, bloom like a flower, sweet and the sour, feels like I'm high. It's cute. And so that is actually sung all in English too. So yeah, just a cute little part of the song. One other thing I'd like to note about this song is that the guitar outro just is so good. It sounds fantastic. And it really completes the song as a whole just really well. So just another song that I love. Now we're actually at the final song, and it's called Borderline. This song is really interesting for a few reasons. Akko presumably is using her rail singing voice. This entire album, she's sung in a very high register. But in this song, she's sounding almost even deeper than I am, as reluctant as I am to admit that. And it really highlights this weird thing I have with Akko in that she looks 25, but then she also sometimes looks like 45. So I really don't know like how old she is. I'm assuming she is on the younger side, but I can't find any evidence to confirm or deny any of that. So I thought that was really interesting. So in this song, she is using her natural voice and the higher voice as well. So at first I thought there might be some kind of feature on the album, but no, it's just her. Again, that contrast, really cool. And honestly, like I would like to see her sing with the deeper voice more often. Like for example, I really like it when Utaha from Wednesday Campanella uses her more natural, deeper sounding voice on their songs, though she doesn't really use that too often. On top of that too, I really like when Danny Brown is also using his more natural voice instead of his very like high-pitched, almost like clown-like sort of voice. So that's just one really interesting element of the song that I wanted to point out. So yeah, that's the whole album. I really just want to say that it is absolutely amazing that all of these like 13 tracks can sound so sonically cohesive, but then also just feature these very unique elements in pretty much all of them that really set them apart and are trying to kind of just barely venture out of the same homogeneous sound that the whole album uses, and then just kind of pluck various inspirations from all kinds of sources. I think that's a really cool way to approach your first album, and I think it just works really well for Akko here. And so one issue that I do have with a lot of albums too is that sure, I might like an artist's sound. However, if their project is using that same sound the entire time, I can sometimes get sort of tired of it, but that never happened here. And I think it's because there are so many variations on her root sound that it just never bored me, which I think is a real feat. And I feel like is something that could be picked up by other listeners too. So with that said too, I don't really have any cons on this album. Sure, it is a little samey, but I think those are very minimal cons. Those in no way stop any song from being unlistenable or one I want to particularly take out of the track list for like a very specific and negative reason. I just think it all works super well, and I'm really excited for whatever she comes up with next. I know a lot of Japanese artists don't drop albums too frequently. They usually favor EPs. So sure, an EP would be nice, but I'd really like another album next year, though I doubt that will happen, especially because Akko has been around for 4 years now, and we're only just now getting to her first album. So the wait might be kind of long. Yeah, so with that said, that's my review. I know I said I wouldn't be assigning a score for albums, but, you know, I just might. And I just might have to give this one a 9 out of 10. I feel like I just don't really have any cons, and the few that I have are very minimal. But there's nothing that made me go, like, this is an instant classic. right? So I'm just gonna give it a 9, and we're just gonna leave it there. But it's definitely one of the higher rated albums on my whole list for 2024 in general. So I highly recommend this one. Tell your friends after you listen to it, and tell them that it's actually worth your time for sure. So thank you for watching, and I hope to have my next video out very soon. So have a good rest of your day, and thank you very much.